Okay. Okay, let's continue from last time. Last time we talked about elliptic curves over finite field, and we mentioned that there are two cases if we're using an elliptic curve over a finite field whose characteristics is not 2 or 3. Okay? Then there's no problem. We can pretty much use the same formula same sets of formulas we used for the elliptic curves over real numbers. Now, we mentioned that it's not possible to use real numbers for cryptographic applications because we simply cannot represent real numbers using finite memory. So the only possibility is using elliptic curves over finite fields. So if we're using prime fields, then we use the same set of rules as we used for the elliptic curves over R. However, in some cases, if you want to use special hardware to speed up elliptic curves, then using elliptic curves over binary fields is actually also an even better choice. To make that happen, we cannot use the same set of formulas like this, because we have a problem of point doubling. Okay, that's a problem. Okay. So in that case, we cannot use this type of elliptic curve directly. We have to slightly modify the curve. So there are two approaches. One is we use the elliptic curves of 0 J invariant. Another is we use non-zero J invariant. We can pretty much regard this J invariant as a kind of like, let me use an analogy, kind of like unrotated elliptic curves. So the curve does not have a cross term xy. It's aligned without any tilting. Okay, so it's just translation. So we have an A3 term. Another way to do that is by doing a little rotation. Okay, this is y squared plus xy. So in this case, we can actually use one less variable. We only have to use two variables to represent a curve. So that's non-zero J invariant. So for 0 J invariant, we know that if we use translation, I mentioned that last time, then the mirroring point, or called the inverse formula, is slightly changed by doing a translation. The addition and doubling also changed accordingly. The most important thing is in the doubling formula, we don't have this divided by 2 problem. Okay, divided by 0. So we can use this type of elliptic curves with no problem. It's just we have to use an extra parameter to describe this type of elliptic curves. Another approach, another choice is to use non-zero J invariant. If you try to visualize this type of elliptic curve, you can actually draw an elliptic curve like this by feeding some values A2 and A6. Obviously, we cannot use finite field elements. I suggest you guys, if you guys are interested, you guys can just feed 2 real numbers, and then you will see the curve will be tilted because there is an xy term. Okay, so we kind of tilt the curve. That's J invariant. So the all three formulas, they are changed. The inverse, addition, and doubling, they're all changed. They're modified. Obviously, we also eliminate the problem of dividing by 2, okay, or dividing by 0, so there's no problem at all. Now, let me make some remark on the number of points on an elliptic curve. First, I have to say that the number of points on an elliptic curve is an extremely difficult question. It's almost difficult to answer. It's also one of the most difficult problems regarding elliptic curves. Actually, just counting or estimating the number of points on a curve is hard enough, let alone any other problems. So you guys can have an idea like how difficult it is regarding elliptic curves, how unfamiliar we people are, how difficult, how unfamiliar we are with elliptic curves. The number of points on an elliptic curve, we cannot calculate the exact number, but we only have some estimates. So Hess's theorem, okay, it gives this formula. Okay, I list these formulas just for the sake of completeness. Okay, most likely you guys will never use this in your life. And also, while as a conjecture regarding the number of points. Okay, so anyway, just estimating the number of points is already an extremely hard problem. And I have to mention that the number of points do play an important role on an elliptic curve because it tells us how big this group is. It's essential in assessing the difficulty of an elliptic curve. Okay. Now, we have already finished describing this elliptic curve. Okay, and before we move on to look at how to apply these curves on actual crypto systems, let's take a look at some concrete example of elliptic curves. Now, this file contains the suggested parameters of an elliptic curve. Let's take a look. Let's take the elliptic curves over a prime field, for example. We need 6 variables to describe this elliptic curve. Okay, so the equation is this: y squared is congruent to x cubed plus ax plus b mod p. So first we have to describe this finite field fp. Okay, this finite field fp, and then 2 parameters a and b. They are in fp. They describe the curve. Okay, and also we need a starting point g. We can view this as a generator of the group, and then hopefully every point on the curve can be represented as a scalar multiple of g. Okay, and then n is the number of points. I said it is extremely difficult to calculate precisely. We only have estimates. Okay, and since it is a super difficult problem, it's not possible to calculate this precisely. So the parameters here, they are done using simulations. So only simulations show. So it is possible that we do have that many points, and then we know that choosing the starting point g, the base point g, is another very difficult problem. And then this problem is even harder than estimating the number of points on a curve. So it's it is possible that we may not be able to choose a good G that covers every point on the curve. So if we can't do that, what should we do? We can just choose the best one. So for example, it's very possible that you'll choose a point G that only covers, for example, half of the points on the curve. That is absolutely possible. So we have integer h. It tells us the ratio of the points that you covered. So this is integer. H is called the cofactor. It is defined as the number of points on the curve divided by the order of G. Okay. When you have a base point, you can calculate its order. It simply means NG, okay, is equal to the point at infinity, which is the identity. Okay, so if you do scalar product n times, it will go back to 0, point at infinity. So this is the order, and then this order is at most the number of points. Okay, so if your n is less than EFP, that actually means your base point G cannot cover everything. That is not the best choice, but sometimes it's you don't have any other choice, right? It's possible. There's some settings you may even have the cofactor h, which is equal to 4. That is possible. So you can only cover 1/4 of an elliptic curve. Let's take a look at some concrete curves. Okay. Let's take a look at this curve, SECP 192 K1. So this is a curve that uses 192 bits. Okay, and then this curve's name is called K1. So the PABGNH, we can take a look. So this P is here. Okay, usually we choose certain parameters, and we prefer those parameters that look better because that will be easier to to represent. Okay, so these are all hex terms. Okay, so this is P. Okay, this is P, and it's equal to this number. And then the curve A is equal to 0. Okay, and B is equal to 3. These numbers were deliberately chosen to be small. Okay, and it works. It achieves the same level of security as any other A and B's. Okay, so we prefer to choose smaller A and B. Just like in RSA for the public key, we can actually choose the public key to be very small. Okay, so then let's take a look at the base point. Actually, there are two ways to represent a base point, a point. This is called a compressed form. This is uncompressed form. For uncompressed form, this is the x coordinate in hex. This is the y coordinate. And then 04 simply tells us this is uncompressed form. So we'll list all x and y parameters. For compressed form, we simply choose the we simply represent the x term. Okay, the x term, because we have a curve, right? We have a curve. This is our curve. And then if you choose the base form, if you feed in an x, we can get a y by evaluating this formula and then take a square root. Okay, so we can do that. But the thing is, when we evaluating this is no problem. The problem arises when we're trying to find the square root. Okay, if you find a square root, you will end up with 2 square roots. So which one should you choose? In that case, you need to choose one of them. So that has some 1-bit information. You need to have an extra bit that is contained in this 03. Okay, so O4 actually this prefix means it's uncompressed, and we have O3 and O2 that's compressed. Okay, so O2 and O3 that gives you that 1 bit. So which one you choose from, and then the x coordinate. Okay, and in this type of representation, we have if a point is OO, we use OO to represent the point at infinity. So that's how we represent elliptic curves. Okay, then the order of G is this. This is the order of G. It's a really large number. Okay, and then the cofactor is good. The cofactor is 1. Actually, that means the order of G is equal to the number of points on the curve. So this is an elliptic curve over a prime field. So that's just an example. And later, when you guys do an assignment, the next assignment will be on the elliptic curves. Now let's take a look at another example of an elliptic curve over, let's say, a finite field, a binary field. Okay, so we need, now this is a binary field, f2 to the power of m, and then we need these parameters to represent a curve. Okay, septuple, 7 parameters. Now let's take an elliptic curve, for example. This is the elliptic curve of the non-zero J invariant. So we need an A and B, right? Okay. So that's the so this is the elliptic curve over a non-zero J invariant binary field. Let's pick up a curve. Now this curve sect 162K1. Let's take a look at this curve. So we need 7 parameters. Okay, first we need to specify the finite field. This M is big, right? Okay, so M is 163. Okay, so it's 2 to the power of 163. So that's a really large field. And we have to specify a irreducible polynomial, right? This is an irreducible polynomial. Okay, so the first 2 parameters are used to describe this curve. So in contrast to prime field, you only need 1p to specify that elliptic curve. You only need 1p. But for binary fields, you need 2 parameters, both m and an irreducible polynomial. Okay. Now the curve, we have to specify a and b. So these a and b, these are elements. Okay, elements over the finite field using hex representation. If you guys remember that these a and b, they are actually not numbers. They are polynomials. Okay, polynomials mod these irreducible polynomial. Okay. Now base point G, okay, compressed form and uncompressed form. Uncompressed form is O4. Okay, starting from this, okay, we have a starting from O2 to this is E8 to here. That's the x coordinate, and then follow that's the y coordinate, uncompressed form. Okay, so this is an elliptic curve. Okay, over finite field f2 to the power of 163. Okay, and there are other elliptic curves you can see. Okay, so back to elliptic curves. Now let's take a look at the operations. In the past, we already introduced many discrete log-based problems. And now we're going to modify them using elliptic curve. Okay, we apply the elliptic curve group on these applications, to these applications. So If you guys remember, we have introduced the Diffie-Hellman key exchange and algol encryption, and what else? Algol signature and DSA signature. These are the things we can apply, okay, elliptic curve to. So we're going to introduce these things. Now, the problems those algorithms we introduced earlier, they use ZP star, okay, use ZP star, and then now we're going to switch this ZP star to the elliptic curve group, okay, and then it's actually pretty easy. You simply replace every multiplication by the point addition. That's it. And you replace every exponentiation by the scalar multiple. Okay, that is enough. Okay, that will give you, I mean, in 99% that will give you a new algorithm, okay, using elliptic curves. Let's take a look. Okay, so the group ZP star, the group elements 1, 2 until p minus 1. Okay, so this will be replaced by the elliptic curve group, okay, EF. So the group elements, they are points on the curve plus an additional imaginary point, that point at infinity. Okay. For group operations, the group operations are those numbers multiply, okay, multiply together mod p. Okay, now they will be changed to additional points, point addition of the elliptic curves. Okay, now the addition of elliptic points of additional points on a curve actually means applying the set of formulas we introduced. Okay, so there's no group anymore because we apply them using elliptic curves on over finite fields. Okay, so no curves anymore. So the notation looks like this: two elements GH now becomes 2 points on the curve P and Q. So multiplication G times H will become P plus Q. The inverse will become negative. So the negative means we actually use the this inverse rule that will give you the negative of a point. Okay, inverse rule. So depending on what you what type of curve you use, okay, I should say what type of finite field you're using, so they will correspond to different formulas. Okay, division actually means subtraction. Okay, so division using ZP star, what we do here is we find the inverse, find the multiplicative inverse of a point H, and then we apply multiplication with G. That will be division. The same thing applies to the elliptic curve. Subtraction P minus Q, that means first we use the inverse formula, apply that formula on Q, and then we apply point addition, so P and minus Q. Okay, and then exponentiation G to the power of A, that will be changed to a scalar multiple P. I have to make a special remark on here, because how do we calculate modular exponentiation? Okay, if you guys remember, how do we calculate? We actually have a special algorithm on doing that. Let's go back to the let's go back and we do, let's go back to the RSA slide. Okay. Let's lecture 6. Let's take a look. So modular exponentiation, if you guys remember, when we do this, okay, modular exponentiation, we apply this algorithm, right? We apply this algorithm to calculate a raised to the power of b mod n, right? This is how we do that, if you guys remember. Now, let's take a look on the elliptic curve version. Okay, now let's consider BA. Let me type this if you guys remember what I'm doing. Okay, so let's calculate BA. Okay, that is, A is a point. Okay, A is a point on the curve, and then B is an integer. Okay, so we calculate BA. Let me make this larger. Okay, we calculate BA. Okay, that will be the scalar multiple. Okay, yeah, we call this scalar multiple. Scalar multiple. So the scalar multiple actually corresponds to the exponentiation, modular exponentiation. Let's take a look. So what should we do? We need to modify this thing. Okay, now A is a point, so we change these things. So A is not a lowercase anymore, it's an uppercase because A is a point. That will be easier to understand. And anything mod n, that will be changed to a point on a curve. So we change the big D to, okay, big D to point on a curve. Okay, so so we change this. So D is a point on a curve, but C is a temporary variable that holds an integer, because we use that to hold a temporary integer for B. So we change it this way. Okay, first C is set to 0, and then D is a point on a curve that will be initialized to the point at infinity. Okay, and then for I goes from K down to 0, what we do here, we don't make any modifications here. Okay, but this big D, big D will be reset as, now D times D, that will be multiplication, right? Multiplication on the elliptic curve will be changed to the point addition. So that will be D plus D. Is actually point doubling. Okay, now we change this as well. So this big D will be modified as big. Now, this is multiplication, right? So multiplication will be changed to addition. So this will be big D plus big A, and then there's no mod n anymore. Let me type this down just to let you guys know. Okay, the elliptic curve version. Okay, let me type this down so you guys will know. Okay, it's actually not hard. It's just you guys have to know what I'm doing. So calculating this BA. So since I cannot type this left arrow, I will simply use this. Okay. Okay. So C is an integer, and then D is big O. Okay. This is the point at infinity. Maybe I can use a remark, point at infinity. Okay, and then we use 4. Okay, 4. Okay, I goes from K goes down to 0. It's a little difficult to type this, so let me use the C style. For I goes from K. Okay, I is for I. Okay, I start from K, and then I, okay, goes down to 0. Okay, and I minus. So let me use the C style. Okay, now we do, right? So we don't use do anymore. So C is initialized as 2 times C, so there's no problem. 2 times C. Okay, so no problem. 2 times C. Okay, And then D is, so this D is a point, so big D, right? Big D is equal to 2D, okay? Here we apply point doubling, okay? That's D, okay? And then we use if, okay? If bi, okay, let me use this. If bi is equal to 1, okay, then we do this. If bi is equal to 1, then we do C, okay, is incremented, okay, C++. Maybe I should use this, C++. I want to use C++. And then, now, here we change. This D is reset to D plus A, so point addition, okay? You gotta be careful. So this is point addition. And then finally we return D, okay, return D. That will be the modular exponentiation for the elliptic curve, just to let you guys know, okay? This is how we modify this algorithm, okay? So just make sure that everybody knows what I mean. This is point doubling back to elliptic curves. Now, so this modular exponentiation will be changed to scalar multiple, okay? And then we use the same, essentially we apply the same algorithm, the modular exponentiation algorithm, okay? Now the discrete log problem is modified accordingly as well, okay? Initially, it's given the base g, small g, and then given any point, any element in ZP star, we find the index. Okay, now we change to this version. Given a point on the elliptic curve, and then this is the base point, the given base point, and then given another point Q, let's find A such that this Q is a scalar multiple of P, okay, AP. That's the elliptic curve version. So, oh, by the way, some remarks. The elliptic curve crypto system was proposed by these two people, Neil Koblitz and V.S. Miller, in 1985. So it's 27 years old. Okay, this is pretty old. And there are some standards, the ECDSA, EC key agreement, and other as well, right? The elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman key exchange, okay? And the main reason why we use elliptic curve is that people are not very familiar with this type of group. So there are very limited attacks. None of them poses a real threat to the elliptic curve system, crypto system. That is the reason why we can use a much smaller number of bits to represent those elliptic curves, which makes it possible to run on portable devices like cell phones, or even maybe other embedded systems. Okay, so let's do a comparison. Generally speaking, okay, for RSA, yeah, this kind of goes a little off. Maybe I should modify a little bit. So the let me do this, yeah, because the chart is a little off. The RSA, generally speaking, it's this. Yeah, that is why I don't like Microsoft products, because they're almost off. They're almost off. So if you use for example, Word to write a document on your system, it looks good, but on another system, it's all off. And then nothing is really aligned. But if you use PDF, there's no problem. I mean, there's no system compatibility problem. Any system it'll work. So that is why I always prefer Adobe products. I always prefer those over Microsoft products, because Microsoft is a company that really sucks. Okay, so RSA, generally speaking, the standard RSA, generally we use 1024 bits or 2000 or 48 bits these days. These days we need a little more. We need to double the size. 10 years ago, 1024 bits. The level of security is about the same if you use 160-bit elliptic curves, like the curves we see, like sect1 163 k1, that kind of curve. That's about 160-bit curves. They have pretty much the same level of security, and even though the elliptic curves, those set of formulas, they look a little complicated, but actually, if you use a program, if you write a program, it's not too hard. It's actually pretty easy. I mean, the next assignment, you guys will have some experience, hands-on experience. It's not that hard. It's okay. It's just different set of rules, so it's really not that hard. And because the size is much smaller, it's much faster. Overall, it's much faster. If you run an elliptic curve, a 160-bit elliptic curve, it's like 5 to 10 times faster than a 1024-bit RSA. That's the main advantage. It's very fast, and the security is good. So much faster, and then much less attacks. It's just we don't have any flexibilities. Okay. Let's take a look at the actual application. Let's take a look at the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Okay. The original version, Alice and Bob wants to share a key. So Alice chooses a secret key XA, Bob chooses a secret key XB. Okay. And then the public information is ZP star. First, we need to have a P. Now here is Q. Okay. It doesn't matter. So Q. And we need to have a generator. Okay, this alpha. This alpha has to be we so-called the primitive root of G, which actually means it's a generator. Okay. Now, Alice calculates alpha raised to the power of XA mod Q, and then sends to Bob. Okay. And then Bob calculates alpha raised to the power of XB and sends to Alice. And the shared key is this. Now, let's modify this using the elliptic curve crypto system. So the public information is changed to a public information of an elliptic curve. Let's take a look if this is, so we need to have those public informations, like the sixth tuple for a prime field, okay, or the seventh tuple of the binary field. So let's go back. Yeah, just take a look. Okay, let's just take this. Okay, these are the public information. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So actually these two are not directly used. We only need these 5 to be able to properly describe a curve. Okay, and in nature not that important. It's just for us to know for completing sake. And if it's a prime field, then you only need P, A, B, G. That's it. Okay, so P, A, B, G. Binary field, M, F, X, A, B, G. So that's public information. Now, the user chooses, Alice chooses an integer xa. That's the same. Bob chooses an integer xb. That's also the same. And then Alice calculates, okay, this big X, which is a point on a curve. Okay, so uppercase, always a point on a curve. Lowercase, integers. Okay, and then this is a scalar multiple, right? We need to use the modified modular exponentiation algorithm. Right? So that's user A. Okay, and user B, Bob, does the same thing. Okay, and then this is the shared secret, XAXPG. Okay, so the shared secret is a point on a curve. Okay, that's it. And you may ask, how do we use this type of information? Because it's a point on a curve. It doesn't matter, because you can always convert it to a string, okay, a binary string or anything, right? A number, that is also okay, because you can simply take its x coordinate and then convert it to a binary string. Okay, so that's all you need. That's Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Let's take a look at the elliptic curve algorithm encryption. Okay, so the original version is this. Okay, ZP star. So we have to have a P and then generator G. Okay, now it becomes public information of an elliptic curve. Now it's PABG. So this is if it's a curve it's an elliptic curve on over a prime field, then you need to have a prime number P. Okay, generator G, the big G, is already contained in the curve. Okay, actually for elliptic curves, you don't have that much freedom to choose those parameters, because those parameters, they were simulated using supercomputers. So those are carefully studied. Those curves do not have much weakness. That is why that may be one of the drawbacks of elliptic curve, is lack of flexibility. It's not that you can, for example, tweak a curve a little bit, it slightly increase its size. It's not that easy, because pretty much you don't have any flexibility at all. You have to decide before applying this algorithm. You have to decide how much security you need, how many bits do you need, and then you just choose a curve, okay, from the suggested parameter list. There's nothing you can tweak. Okay. So the key generation is for algorithm, you select random number X. Okay, here elliptic curve version, we select a random number NA. Okay, and then here public key is G to the power of X. That will be changed to NA, scalar multiple G. Okay, so this is a point on a curve. Okay, the public key is GPY. This public key, the public key contains the public information of the elliptic curve, plus this is your real public key, and then this is GMP, is a public information of your group. Okay, and private key is X. This private key is NA. Okay, encryption. We select a random number K. Okay, and compute this G to the power of K, MY raised to the power of K. Now it's changed to this. We select a random number, okay, N, okay, and then compute NKG, right? This is modular exponentiation. So modular exponentiation will be changed to scalar multiple, okay, NKG. And then here we have modular exponentiation, which is changed to scalar multiple. And then we also have a multiplication, okay, multiplication like this. Now this multiplication will be changed to point addition. Okay, and then decryption is this. Okay, receive this, and then you do division, a to the x. So division becomes subtraction. Okay, so everything is the same. It's just we have a little problem here. Let me explain. We have a plain text. The plain text is m. Now we have to represent this plain text as a point on a curve. How to do that? Okay. So there's an easy way to do that. Plain text. What you can do is you can whatever plain text you have, you can represent it as a binary string, right? And then that binary string, you can take that binary string and then simply regard it as a number, okay? And then that number, you can correspond to any point on a curve by embedding that number to the x-axis. So let's go back and take a look at this. Okay. Now, let's say you have the binary number, right? Whatever binary number you have, what you can do is here, you embed this. We know that this is the x-axis, the x coordinate, right? You just put it there, okay, and then you solve y. Okay, you solve y. Here you solve a quadratic equation. Okay, that may take some time. It's not that easy to solve a quadratic equation, but anyway, it's possible to solve a quadratic equation. Okay, in the elliptic curves over binary field, that will be a little tricky because we need some algebraic properties to solve the quadratic equation, because we cannot apply the formula b squared plus minus square root of b. We have a formula for quadratic equations, right? Solving ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So the problem is the denominator is 2a, 2 times a. Okay, so if you're working in binary fields, then that's essentially dividing by 0, just like any other, just like the point doubling formula we introduced earlier on binary fields. That's the same thing. So we cannot do that. It doesn't mean that we cannot solve quadratic equations this way. Okay, it doesn't mean that we cannot solve quadratic equations. It only means that we cannot solve quadratic equations this way. Okay, there are other ways we can do. Okay, but for prime fields, there is no problem. Like prime fields, let's take a look at any prime fields. Okay, so prime fields, there's no problem. You simply plug in an x and then find a square root. Okay, square root is, you can find a square root, right? Because how to find a square root, if you guys remember, how to find a square root? How to find square root? Now, when we talk about rabbit, right? How to find a square root? If you guys remember, right? Find a square root in ZP when your P is this. That is okay. If it's 5 mod 8, that is also okay. Okay? Well, if it's not, it's neither 3 mod 4 or 5 mod 8, then you can run this. Okay? So pretty much there's no problem at all. Okay? So you can do the square root. There's no problem. So in that case, you can simply plug in the x coordinate, okay, and then you can calculate this x cubed plus ax plus b. You get the y square, and then you'll find the square root. The problem is you may not have a square root, because just like other elliptic curves, just like the ordinary elliptic curves over the real numbers, you give me any point on x here. Let's say your x is equal to 1, then you have 2 square roots. But the thing is, what if you choose your x is here? If your x is here, then you do not have any solution at all. Okay, so it's not guaranteed that you will always end up with a solution. Then what should we do? So basically what we do here is that we don't directly convert the plain text to the x coordinate, okay? We embed the plain text x into a bigger string. So that string contains some extra bits. So those extra bits can be used as, kind of like random numbers, okay? And then those bits will just be discarded. They're not used. Their existence is for guaranteeing a solution. So in practice, you only need like 5 to 10 bits. That would be more than enough. Okay, let's say you embed 5 bits at the end, and then initially you can put your plain text m as the x coordinate, and then you can set all 5 bits to 0. Okay, those bits, we call them don't care bits. Okay, don't care, because you would ignore them. And then those bits, you may not have if you cannot find a square root, then you simply increment that don't care bits. So if, let's say, 5 straight 0 doesn't give you a solution, okay, then you increment 1. Okay, then you have 4 straight 0 and 1. Okay, and see whether you have a square root or not. If not, we increment again. So 5 bits, that means you have 32 trials. And basically that's enough to have, because generally speaking, on an elliptic curve, when you have, except for the point at infinity, which there's only one square root for the point at infinity, which is itself. Basically, any other points, if you any other x coordinate, you will have a pair of square roots, or you don't have any square roots at all. So roughly speaking, you can think of it this way: like half of the points you have a square root, half of points you don't. So generally speaking, like, if you use 5 bits, that's more than enough, because you have 32 trials. Okay, so that's enough to guarantee the existence of a square root. So then this is the way of embedding a plain text into a point, okay, a point on a curve. Okay, so that's how we apply the elliptic curve algorithm encryption. Let's take a look at ECDSA. So ECDSA is a little different. Okay, so DSA, we choose ZP, and then we choose a subgroup. Okay, we choose a subgroup. That is DSA. Okay, here we simply choose the ECDSA as a point on a curve, okay, of order n. We don't need to use any subgroup. We can just regard the subgroup as the group itself. Okay, the key generation, okay, the y, okay, y is small g raised to the power of d. Now, This is big Q. The big Q is so we select a point on a point of order n, which is the G, the base point itself. Okay, so Q is equal to dp. Okay, the public key is this, private key is d. So d is a point, is an integer. Signature generation, select random numbers, and then this R is G to the power of K, mod P mod Q, right? So mod P mod, I'm sorry, mod P mod Q, okay? Now, this KP, so this, now what we do is we do KP, okay, is a point, right? We can't do mod P mod Q, right? It doesn't matter. We can only do mod n because the order is n, right? The order of the group is n. So we can't do that, but it doesn't matter. We take the x coordinate, so we can simply drop the y coordinate, and then we do mod n. Okay, so mod p mod q is, and it becomes mod n. Okay, that is why in this case we do need the number of points on the curve. Okay, so that's, they're all given in the in a PDF file, so that is okay. And then everything is, it's pretty similar. So the S is K inverse, that's K inverse, HN plus DR mod Q. The mod Q, we simply change mod Q to mod N. Okay. And then for signature verification, so anything if that's mod Q, we change to mod N. Okay, if it's a point mod, if it's mod P mod Q, then we drop the y coordinate and mod N. So that's a little bit of modification. So in some cases you change this a little bit, okay, to DSA. Okay, so everything else is the same. So just in some cases you need to change a little bit of these things. So that's DSA, the elliptic curve version. Okay. So the conclusion, the advantage, so it offers the highest strength, security strength per bit of any known public key system. It's still the highest compared to many others, still the best. And it also offers the same level of security with smaller key sizes. It's much better. It could even be possible to run the elliptic curves on, if you guys know, wireless sensor networks. Okay, you can use public key system, which is unthought of. It's almost impossible. You can apply public key crypto systems on a wireless sensor network. Maybe in later versions, it is even possible to be able to use the what is it called, the easy card, yo-yo ka. Because we know that, if you guys know that the yo-yo ka easy card is essentially a computer, because it's got RAM, it's got ROM, it's got a CPU, it's got everything. Okay, wireless module, it's basically a complete computer. So it's a mini computer, but it's got everything. In the past, it's almost unthought of that one could apply public key crypto systems to the smart devices like the easy card. But now with the advances of hardware development, it's not that impossible anymore. So ECC does have this advantage because 164 bits, that's possible. Okay, smart card wireless devices, that is possible. Okay, so we're done with the elliptic curve. Now let's move on to another topic, IPsec and SSL/TLS. So we're pretty much done with all theoretic stuff. We're pretty much done. Yeah, we're pretty much done with theoretic stuff. So, oh, by the way, so sorry. Yeah, it's not this one. Yeah, let's do this first. Yes, forgot. Let's do this first. Yeah. Yeah, let's take a look at blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So I think this is a relatively new topic, even though I've already taught many years. I think many students may be interested in this topic as well. Okay, so let's take a look at. We're going to introduce blockchain, Bitcoin, as well as other cryptocurrencies. Okay, so what is a blockchain? To put it in a short way, a blockchain is an incorruptible digital ledger. So ledger 中文叫做账本. So it's a digital ledger and it's incorruptible. It's pretty much like, we can think of this way. We put our ledger on an kind of like a P2P network, and we use a lot of security protocols to make it incorruptible. Okay, because we use a lot of hash signature, and then we we link them together, and that can be verified. The signatures can be verified, the hash can be computed. So we'll link them one by one like a chain, and then everybody can verify it. So it's a very interesting way, and all these the security protocols used here are nothing new. We simply apply those and put them together. It's just a way of combining things and come up with coming up with a really interesting set of rules so that everybody actually benefit from it. That is the thing. Okay, we'll make it more clearly. Okay. So blockchain is a pretty much, it's the underlying technology of Bitcoin. Okay, it's analogous to TCP/IP protocol, which is the foundation of the internet. Okay, and then this public ledgers, they are decentralized. Bitcoin's decentralized. Okay, so this is just a diagram of centralized versus decentralized and distributed. Okay, so the Bitcoin, the creator of the Bitcoin is really had some dreams. So he thought that now in the world the transaction fee is very high. Let's say if you do bank transfer, let's say you can transfer money from Taiwan to let's say Thailand or something. Okay, then the transaction fee will be really high because let's say you're using the Bank of Taiwan, which is in the SWIFT system, and every transaction made, generally they will charge you something like 600, 700 outgoing fee. And then not just outgoing fee, there's an intermediate bank, because there's no bank that can, I should say, Taiwanese banks and Thailand banks and Thai banks, Taiwan's banks and Thailand's banks, they cannot directly change currency. So it's not possible to change from the Taiwanese dollar to Thai baht directly. You have to change via a third party, like the US dollar or something. Okay, or any other major currencies like the Japanese yen or euros, British pound. So that's a problem. So according to the SWIFT system, if you transfer money from Taiwan to Thailand, you have to go through some bank, and most likely it's a bank in the United States. And then those are intermediate banks. Those intermediate banks, they will also charge you something like 400 500 Taiwanese dollars per transaction. And then finally, when your money reaches Thailand, that will be they will charge you incoming fee as well. That will be something like 600 Taiwanese dollars. So altogether, it's almost like 2,000 Taiwanese dollars. So that actually happened to me because you guys know that one of my students, one of my former PhD students, already got his PhD degree. He graduated it, and now he is professor in Thailand. And there is once we joined a conference that's held in Thailand, and the problem is I have to pay the conference fee, and then for some reason that conference organizer, they don't allow us to use credit card, which is a pain in the ass. Most major conferences they allow they allow uh, credit card payment. That's actually essential. So they didn't allow that. I don't know why, but things they didn't allow. The only possible way to pay for the conference fee is through wire transfer. Okay, bank transfer. That really sucks. The main problem is not just the high transaction fee and the I think it's that it takes a long time. That's not the main problem. The main problem is you don't know in advance how much transaction fee will be charged because every day there's a currency exchange rate. Okay, so let's say you wire 5,000 Taiwanese dollars. The outgoing fee you will know maybe like $600, but the incoming fee is charged in baht, and also the intermediate fee as well. They're charged in US dollars or something. So every day there's a different rate. So when your money really reaches the bank in Thailand, you have no idea how much is charged, how much is the fee. And let's say the conference registration fee is 10,000 Taiwanese dollars. How can you be sure that when your money reaches Thailand, there will be 10,000 Taiwanese dollars? You really have no control over it. Okay, so that's a really real pain in the ass. That is why the creator of Bitcoin, he thought I was just too much trouble. So he wanted to design a system that can get around of these problems. Okay, so that's the original idea of a Bitcoin. He wants to lift the barrier, remove the barrier for currency exchange, and then he wants the transaction fee to be as low as possible. So it was first created according to the idea from this Japanese guy Satoshi Nakamoto, okay, who actually published a paper called a peer-to-peer electronic cash system in 2009. You guys can take a look at the original white paper. Okay, it's not a peer-reviewed paper. It's like a white paper, but it's really inspiring as well. You guys can take a look. That's this. You guys can just Google using this keyword, okay, the title, and then I'm sure it will be there. Okay, take a look, and because that's the original version of Bitcoin, I want everybody to know. Okay, so the original idea of the blockchain, it's a peer-to-peer network. It supports proof of work as well as digital signatures. Okay, we will introduce these things individually. So peer-to-peer network. If you guys know what is a peer-to-peer network, the peer-to-peer. Actually, there for us graduate students or college students, the use of peer-to-peer networks, it's just two things. Number one, sharing adult videos. Okay, I'm sure most students do that. Another one is you share those like illegal movies. Okay, the movies that's still in theater, and you can download those movies without copyright. So what is a peer-to-peer network? How can people do that blatantly? Put those the digital content that has rights, copyright, and share them to the whole network. Okay, actually, it's a gray area in law, and it's a gray area in different laws across different countries. That is why they can do that. Okay, the first one is called Napster. That's the first famous peer-to-peer network. They actually, or originally, there's a company that implemented um, a peer-to-peer network. Okay, and then what they want is they want to, take advantage of a gray area. So you say these digital contents they have copyright, right? Well, but the copyright is limited to the whole digital content. What if you can partition them into pieces? Let's say 100 pieces or 1,000 pieces, and then each person on the network only takes a piece. So it's difficult to sue to sue the content share, right? Especially they're across different countries. That's the peer-to-peer network. Okay, so when they, for example, like I'm sure lots of people that use BitTorrent. So if you're a member of BitTorrent, okay, if you have the seed, 种子, if you have a seed, then you have some right to download some adult video, right, or whatever textbooks. That's because that content has been split into many different partitions, and then they're spread over the network, okay, across different countries. Okay, so that is why you can do that, and then they encourage people to share content. So if you upload something, you get credit, you get more seeds, then you can download more. So that actually encourages everybody to share their content. If you share more content, then you have more right to download the stuff, which actually means you have more seeds. So the original version of Napster was like that. They put like the most famous like bulletin songs, American songs on the network Napster for everybody to download for free. That was it's a huge news because people were paying a lot for those to buy their records. Now it's like if you join the network, it's free. So it's big news. And before that, the Napster wasn't that famous. Just like college kids, they use them. But there was a time that those major music companies they wanted to sue the creator of Napster. That actually made a headline news. Okay. Before the lawsuit, nobody cares about Napster. But just because those the music companies they actually sued Napster, and they want to ban Napster. That makes a huge hit. So everybody was trying to download the music as quickly as possible before the deadline. So that's a huge hit, and then it becomes the peer-to-peer network. And after that, there are a lot of peer-to-peer network coming out. And then those companies, they just implemented the software, and then they may not even maintain it. They implement the software, and then they can distribute it for free. They're not making any profits. It's those people. Okay, if you download their software, you can share the content. So it's those people who are sharing the content who are against the law, not the company who actually makes the software, because those companies they only wrote the software. They're not distributing any illegal content on the net on the P2P. That is why it's very difficult to sue them. I mean, you can sue those users, but you cannot sue the company that wrote the program. That is why we have a lot of BitTorrent, eDonkey over these years. So, so the peer-to-peer network encourages people to share. Now, this guy Satoshi Nakamoto, he wanted to use this idea of P2P network, and then he wanted to put a digital ledger on a P2P network. That's the original idea of blockchain, Bitcoin. Okay, and then he does have some really interesting interesting rules as a proof of work. We will talk about that later. Okay. And what happens was, so this Satoshi Nakamoto, most people think he is Japanese, right? But what's interesting is that if you guys look at the white paper on this system, its English is just so good. It's almost impossible. We all know that Japan's Japanese students' English are not that good. Even among Asian students, if you look at them, they're like their TOEFL, their English test scores are not that high. They're like among the lowest, even in Asia, compared to Taiwan or South Korea. But this guy, Mr. Nakamoto's English is not only good, but he even uses a lot of slang, which is almost impossible for non-native speakers. So there are a lot of people there speculating. They think Mr. Nakamoto may not even be Japanese. He may be a native speaker. So who is this person? Some people thought maybe it's this guy, Nick Szabo, which is an American computer scientist. Okay. Another one is an Australian computer scientist called Craig Stephen Wright. So we don't know, and it's a mystery. We really don't know. Okay. So this guy was the CEO of this company called Hardwire Preemptive Intelligence Group. Okay, Hardwire PE. What happens was that this Craig Stephen Wright was arrested, not because of Bitcoin. Okay, I think he was arrested like in 2015 or something, a few years ago, and then just some Australian policemen went to his apartment and then took some of the equipments like this, and this was taken. This photo was taken by some media. So it's a news. And then what's interesting is that after that event, just nothing happens. Okay, no follow-up news, which is a big surprise because we don't know what happened. I mean, are those equipments taken by the police, or those computer hardware that he store Bitcoin? We don't know. Some people are thinking maybe he had already made a deal with the police by giving them some Bitcoins, so then the police actually benefited from that. So there's no follow up. He was not sued. He was just released. Okay. So who is this person remains a mystery. Oh, this is the original paper, Bitcoin white paper. You guys can take a look. His English is just so good, native level. So anyway, Bitcoin is the digital money. There are many versions of digital money before that, but none of them were successful. So actually, before 2009, I didn't think that this was successful either. Now it's like every time I thought it was not successful, every time its price just went up. Now it's like 40,000 US dollars or something. Incredible. It is used on decentralized P2P payment network. Okay, now we will talk about that later. So this technique required every user in this network to store the transaction to keep the network working without a centralized authority. So if you guys want to use Bitcoin, you can download their software, and then you also keep the whole transaction data, the public ledger. That's a lot. A few years ago, one of my students downloaded Bitcoin. He, at that time, I think that was 4 or 5 years ago, he had to download 10 gigabytes of transaction data, those blocks. Now it must have been more, maybe 20 megabytes. I'm sorry, 20 gigabytes of chain. So everybody gets a copy of a blockchain. Some features. First, the transaction fee is small, okay, and then it's also consensus driven. I'll explain what this means. Anyway, it means there's no centralized authority. There's no central bank that's in charge of this. No. So there's nobody who is trusted by everybody to regulate the transactions. And also it's counterfeit resilient. Not because there's any new technology. It's just they apply really good technologies together as a whole. So then those rules, they complement each other in a perfect way that there's no need to it's not that it's impossible to take down the whole system. It's not that. It's just there's no incentive for anybody to crack the whole system. Okay, so that is almost like a miracle. So it's a genius. And then it's not just counterfeit resilient. It actually guarantees that one cannot add coins arbitrarily. So even though there's no central bank, you won't have high inflation. This is really important. And also, one cannot double spend. So this is really important as well, because for any payment system, the most fundamental question is, can we double spend? That's the fundamental question. Because if you, let's say if you have $1 and then you spend twice, if you cannot prevent things like that, then your whole system will crack, right? And there is a really interesting way to provide this, double spend, to prevent double spend from happening. There are two types of people in the Bitcoin network. So in addition to the users, there's another category called miners. So miners, what do miners do? We know that every cryptocurrency needs a bookkeeper. This most likely it's a centralized server that keeps in charge of everything. So that should be trusted by everybody. Okay, so that centralized authority will check whether you have enough money to complete the transaction. That's the most fundamental question, right? If you want to make a transaction, let's say I buy something for $50. The fundamental question is, do I really have that $50? Okay, somebody has to check, right? And then somebody has to check to see whether you have $50. Otherwise, you cannot make the transaction. Okay, so who are the bookkeepers? The miners are the bookkeepers. Okay, even though there is no centralized server, those miners, they compete to do the bookkeeping job for a fee because they want to earn the transaction fee. That gives them a high incentive, gives them big incentive to do this bookkeeping. And they're fighting for the transaction fee, right? So those miners, what they do is they want to find a hash. This hash is called the proof of work, okay, in Bitcoin. And then since we have already taught hash like SHA-256 in the Bitcoin, right? So we know what that is. It's it's just a message digestion algorithm, okay, using all these cryptographic elements, okay, and then just make it easy to compute, but it's impossible to it's computationally infeasible to invert to find a collision. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So those guys, those miners, they update the blockchain. They create new blocks, and then they charge a fee. Okay, they get a reward for that. Okay, so the miners solve complex mathematical problems by finding the hash. Okay, and then they also verify transaction details, whether the sender or whether the buyer has enough money, something like that, and then they'll keep a record on it on the system. That's what the miners do. So hashing, yeah, hashing, we all know that. Actually, these slides are for people who haven't learned basic cryptography at all, so I will just go quickly. Okay, so the miners, they will find transaction. Yeah. So let me jump directly to the let's take a look at this one. Now, all transactions, their data are like that. So this is one piece of transaction. This is another piece of transaction. This is one block. So every block has some block information regarding the some block information. Okay, and then so the block information contains for example, the buyer's signature. Yeah, because the buyers are committed to the buyer committed to pay certain amount of money, right? So that one has to be signed by the buyer. Okay, and the seller doesn't. The seller has some information, right? Something like that. Okay, so the transaction information essentially contains like who pays whom how much money, something like that, and then that has to be verified. Okay, and then this verification is done by finding a proof. Okay, so this is a block. Okay, so block has all that transaction information plus the information from previous block. Okay, which will enter a hash. Okay, now the previous blockchain hash will be a challenge. Okay, and then what does the miner do? The miner is going to find a proof. So when the proof plus the challenge altogether, it will produce a result with consecutive zeros. Now it's like the consecutive zeros. I believe it's like 19 consecutive zeros, something like that, and in hex numbers, hex. So as we can see that this proof is almost like a random number, right? And then the challenge is the information. The challenge is the information that needs to be the information that contains the previous hash that wants to be verified, and then we know that it's impossible to invert a hash. Okay, you cannot get any information from the output. The output will be in specific format. There will be consecutive zeros. Okay, so that is why the only way to find this proof is by trial and error, which takes time. Generally speaking, if let's say your CPU is okay, it takes about 10 minutes to find the proof. So you're just doing repeatedly trying random numbers until you find the proof, until you find that your result looks like this. This is called proof of work. Okay, just keep inserting random bits. So actually a lot of energy has been wasted in finding this proof. It's it's it looks stupid because now in the world every year that the energy we spend this the energy we wasted on mining can almost power a country as large as Denmark. Those people, they're trying to find the proof. Those miners, they want to do that for a fee. They wasted a lot of energy. Even like a Denmark country as large as a Denmark. You cannot imagine how much energy was wasted on this. So this is a proof of work. So the miners, they they're trying they what they do is they're trying to verify the transaction. First, they will check whether the buyer has enough money, and then if yes, they were just trying to find the proof. Okay, how do you know whether this buyer has enough money or not? You look at its transaction history. You know that all transaction history are listed in the blockchain. Opens, it's completely open. That is why it's like almost like 20 gigabytes. Starting from the first block, so first block, since the creation of blockchain, all transaction data, they're stored in a block by block. Now, every block actually contains more than a transaction. Sometimes it contains like 2,000 transactions, sometimes at 600, depends on the many variables. Okay, depends on the size of transaction or something. So the miners, they have to first check that this person, whether or not you do have that much money to pay. So the only way they could check is by looking at your past blocks. Okay, the original version of the Bitcoin wasn't the original version didn't take efficiency into consideration. So every transaction details just listed as plain text. There's no special data structure for that. That is why it makes it search really difficult. And then you don't even know, given the person on the network, you don't even know how much is its net worth. Okay, balance. You still have to look from the first block to check whether or not this person has enough money. So that's called proof of work. Okay, it's not the only way of a blockchain. Now there are other ways as well. There is proof of stake, which I'll mention later. Okay, so digital signatures, we know that very well. Okay, so let's take a look now. So this is the first block of transaction. We know that there are many blocks, and then each block contains a lot of transactions. Maybe we could just take a look. For example, we can go. Let's see. We go this. Yeah. If you type Bitcoin, okay, we can take a look at the Bitcoin. So if you look at transaction details, now let's take a look. Yeah, just maybe I can just use the old version, blockchain.info. You guys can take a look. Yeah, Bitcoin Explorer, that will be easier. So let's take a look at some block. Let's take a look at the latest block. Okay, so this is the hash. As we can see that how many consecutive zeros we have. Maybe we can let me see, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5. So this is 10. Oh, oops. So this is 10, right? 10, and then 1 2 3 4 5, yeah, 19 zeros, 19 consecutive zeros. Okay, and then as we can see that the number of transactions, 1,600, they're all here. Okay, and yeah, we can take a look at this transaction. This is fee, this is a hash, that's the proof. Okay, so that's it. Okay, that's it. So all those transaction data plus proof, they're listed in a block. Okay, and then the result will be fed into the next block. When somebody wants to make a transaction, you just put yourself in a queue. The system will wait for the miners to or wait for the miners to verify you. So whoever is the first one that verifies the transaction, then what the system will do is that, every miner compete with each other to get the proof. So whoever is the first one that finds the hash will get the fee, will get paid, and then that transaction will be verified, will be called temporarily verified. Okay, that roughly takes 10 minutes, and then we'll put there. And then when the transaction is verified, it will modify your blockchain of this computer, and then will propagate to the entire network. So it is possible that the same transaction is verified by two separate miners on different sides of the network. Once it's verified, okay, it will propagate to its neighbor. But the thing is, if it's verified by two different miners, when they meet, okay, when their information propagates to some node, then that node will know, okay, you will have two contradicting informations. Then they will compete. Who is the first one? Yeah, who gets this done earlier? So whoever gets this done earlier takes everything. So that actually means a winner takes all. So if you're just 1 millisecond late, then you're gone. Okay, you don't get paid, and then eventually the whole network will be propagated, and then everybody's blockchain will be updated. Okay, and then when everybody's chain is updated, that usually takes about 1 hour. So that will be a transaction fully confirmed. Okay. So if a transaction is temporarily confirmed, it takes 10 minutes, and then it has to propagate to the entire network. That is why you can prepare. You can prevent the double spend problem, because eventually one transaction will prevail. One transaction will happen earlier, and then that will override everything. It is possible, even though not unlikely, that there may be two separate miners who just happen to verify a block at the same time. That is possible. Time is not in seconds. It's in milliseconds. So it's possible that two transactions were verified at the same time. In that case, there's a special rule of Bitcoin. They compare which miner can actually get 6 blocks after that. They'll compare that. Who actually achieves 6 blocks, including your block. So who can get 5 blocks attached to you? Whoever does that first wins everything. So winner takes all. So in that case, the blockchain will temporarily fork into two chains, and then they'll compete with each other. Okay, finally, the one with 6 chains, they compare the time. Okay, they will win. And it's also, even though it's very rare, but it's not impossible that actually it just happens that 6 blocks later they happen to do that at the same time. Okay, if that happens, then they'll compare another block. Let's see which one gets another block. Okay, so they'll compete with each other block by block until somebody wins. That's how they solve this fork. So forking is temporary. It won't get permanent fork. But eventually, one node will win, and then it will prevail until the whole entire network is replaced with that block. Okay, let's stop here for now.